Hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of the Science and Stuff podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Nowak. With me, as always, I have my co-host, Ethan Vargas. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty well. Uh, and then we also have our illustrious moderator, Mr. Og.
I am here.
So, interesting episode today. We are going to be talking about quantum computing, specifically Microsoft's installment in this whole quantum computing atmosphere. In case anyone doesn't know, Microsoft generally has been behind both Apple and the other company is passing my head right now. Is it Google? Is the other one?
I believe Google has also put a lot of resources into developing a quantum computer.
So they've generally fallen behind both Google and Apple in terms of the quantum computing atmosphere, but recently have made developments with being able to stabilize a thing called the qubit, which we'll get into soon. But there might have been some disruption in the article that was posted. So before we talk about that, we would like to maybe give a brief introduction into kind of how quantum computing works, why people want to get quantum computing so quickly, and what may potentially could hold. Anyone want to start? Ethan, I know you brought this up. Would you like to?
Yeah.
Go?
So the goal behind quantum computing is to so computers can move like relatively fast compared to like 50 years ago, but quantum computing step it up to instantly finding results. And so this problem Microsoft had was that 2 years ago or 3 years ago in 2018, they released a paper about how they found this this particle that was very hard to find and is very useful for quantum computing called the Majorana fermion. And so they thought it kind of brought them up, like Joe was saying, to Google and other companies like Intel and IBM. But recently, a new article was discovered that showed that Microsoft kind of left out information from the 2018 article they had, so they didn't even really find it. So it was kind of like an error they made in this process. And Mr. Og, do you want to explain a little bit more about quantum computing?
Sure. I will give as brief of a snapshot as I can. So quantum computing is relying on the idea of superposition, that something can maintain two states at once. And scientists are hoping that if they can harness this for computers, that computers can run much, much faster than it. So the analogy that always makes the most sense for me, and then I brought up in class a couple days ago, was likening it to trying to solve a maze. Right? When you are trying to fill out one of those mazes on paper or in a magazine, like maybe Highlights has a maze or something, ignoring the trick of starting at the end and working backwards, because that's apparently the way to solve those the fastest. We as human beings, to figure out the path that gets us through the maze, right? We just have to take branches. Whether we draw it or we look at it with our eyes, we follow a path until it dead ends and we go, okay, that is not the right path. And then you backtrack to one of the other choices and you take another path and you get farther and then you go, oh, another dead end. And you keep doing that until you find the path that gets you there. The analogy says our computers are like that, and they can do it very quickly, but they still have to go through a series of events to get the final outcome. Quantum computers, they say, think of it as, rather than having to do one of those branches at a time, the computer can actually do all of them at once and go, hey, look, there's the one. There's the one that worked. I just did all of them, and there's the one. And to put this in perspective, this is coming to us from a Scientific American article that came out at the end of 2019. This is talking about Google's quantum computer, and the scientists working on it claim that the the quantum computer for Google performed some operation that they said would take a classical computer 10,000 years to complete, and it took the quantum computer 200 seconds, which is mind-boggling. So that's sort of the perspective. You know, the science behind it is quantum, and it is mind-blowing. It is superposition, but the ramifications to know sort of moving forward are that it's just a ridiculously fast computer.
Yeah. Is superposition, just so I can clarify, is superposition like Schrodinger's cat?
It is
Or-
absolutely like Schrodinger's
Okay.
cat. It's the idea, for our listeners who don't know Schrodinger's cat, physicist Erwin Schrödinger came up with this thought experiment to try to explain superposition that says, put a cat in a box with a radioactive source. Okay, Schrödinger. Again, he didn't, it was a thought experiment, so he didn't actually do it, right? But he said, put a cat in a box with a radioactive source, and close the box and wait. I think he said maybe like an hour. And because of the unpredictability of radioactive decay, you don't actually know what's going on inside the box until you open it. And so therefore, according to quantum mechanics, you have to conclude that the cat is both alive and dead. As soon as you open the box, you will know for sure, but the cat exists in both states. And that's the idea of superposition. Joe, you brought up qubits. It's this idea that a traditional computer exists in binary, 1 or 0. And you get a computer to do things by assembling your 1s and your 0s. A quantum computer says, but if we can harness superposition, then our qubits are not like 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, or 1, 1. It's all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
Until the actual measurement takes place, which speeds up the process greatly.
Yeah. So where this all comes into play is that these qubits tend to be very, very unstable, to the point where you usually need a lot of energy to produce these fields to keep them stable. And that's where the majority of the energy, if you produce a computer, would be going to. So it's not really that good for commercial design. So what I'm going to try and find his name. I don't want to mispronounce this Dutch guy's name wrong. Does anyone else know how to pronounce?
I don't, but I will take the blame for mispronouncing it. My apologies. But the Dutch physicist and Microsoft employee is Leo Kovenhoven.
Kovenhoven.
It's either Kovenhoven or Cohenhoven. Again, my apologies if he is listening, and if you are, please get in touch with us. We would love to have you on an episode.
Oh yes, for sure.
To talk about quantum computing.
So Cohenhoven did a paper, I believe back in 2012 was the original, where he discovered these Majorana particles, which, according to him, would make it so that these fields or these qubits would be much more stable compared than traditional qubits. And then in 2018, he published another paper that was supposedly reinforce the data that was brought up in the 2012 paper, making it so that these, or like adding more data to the thought that these particles really could improve quantum computing on like a whole new level. The problem was there started to fly around some doubts, or there was a new article posted that said that the data might not be as solid as was proposed in 2018. Ethan, do you want to continue on from that, or?
Yeah, so like Joe said, originally in 2018, they kind of claimed to find the Majorana pheromone particles, and then it says in late last month, so in late January 2021, he published a new paper with 21 co-authors that kind of shows that they kind of omitted data in the 2018 article that kind of undermined their findings. So they kind of just excluded data that would have showed that they actually didn't succeed in finding the particle. So it kind of brought Microsoft back a bit again. And
Sounds like a high school approach to completing a lab, no? Uh-oh, this data
Yeah.
doesn't work. Let's just ignore it. The teacher won't notice.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really funny because I looked at the data and
Mhm.
I believe he stated Covenhoven. He said that it was omitted for aesthetic purposes.
Mhm.
Yet I feel like you don't even have to be a scientist to look at like some of the data. I think there was one that was brought up in a tweet that you can clearly see cut out these sketchy areas that would according to like another scientist who wrote a believe like a commentary on this paper, stated that these areas that were cut out almost 100% prove that these particles either do not exist or would not be stable enough to like function. So yeah, that's very sketchy, but also I don't know, kind of humorous at the same time, a little bit. And I think it kind of brings up, I don't want to go into it too much, but maybe like the reliability on like these huge papers that with like these big headlines, because I feel like a lot of people in research institutions, they want to get like these good jobs and stuff, so they end up publishing papers that may or may not have like the right data and maybe like forging some of it.
Well, I think it speaks to in the sort of scientific process, it speaks to the importance of peer review,
Yeah.
right? What is peer review?
Peer review is when you have like co-authors or other people reviewing your work, going through it, and who vouch that this data is scientifically accurate and that there has been like no tampering.
Yeah, normally new scientific findings are not really fully accepted until they can be replicated, right? Someone can share, hey, look, I have these results, but most of the time it doesn't get published as sort of like a journal article until someone can replicate, or that is one of the reasons to publish something. Hey, here's what I did. Can you do this and find the same thing? Because it is important that not just one person is able to do it, but that it is repeatable.
Yeah. Saying that. So maybe going a little bit past, what do you guys think that maybe had like quantum computing, maybe for Microsoft, where do you think this puts them now? Just because they had this big lead with like these particles. Do you think that that they're I would like assume that this would put them like back quite a few paces.
Yeah. For sure.
Like, sorry, you gonna say something? Or
yeah, you're right. It says in the article that like they kind of made a statement saying that the Covenhaven couldn't comment because he was under peer review still, but it basically just set them back even farther, like you said. While these other companies like Google, Intel, and IBM keep like progressing with like new breakthroughs and their scientists keep accessing new prototypes, so Microsoft is definitely falling behind at the moment, and so their pace is not the best. I don't know if it could get better in the future. Maybe if this guy is able to find the particles, it could progress them again. But for right now, I don't think they'll be able to catch up for a bit.
Yeah. I know they did say something in the article saying there was one of his co-authors, Desarma, I hope I pronounced that correctly, stated like, that transistors, the first patent was made in 1926. It took for like about 20 years for the actual first working transistor to be made, and then the actual like good and like commercially available ones were not really like made till like the 1950s, where like they had like silicon transistors. So he's saying like, maybe in 30 years we'll actually have these particles. And honestly, this might be just me, but I think that's probably the only way that Microsoft can get ahead, because I feel like if they start on like the traditional route that like Apple and Google are using right now, I don't think there's any way they can really catch up, just because like Google and Apple have already put so much into it. So I think the only way they can do is like go full into these particles, maybe by some miracle of luck they could find it, and that would possibly put them on, because this would have put them, I would say, like not on par, but like way ahead of Apple and Google. So I think if, you know, they keep on investing into these particles, potentially in the future, it would allow them to like catch back up. Maybe not as far as it would if they had gotten them now, but for sure, like in the future, maybe just at least catch up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other points you guys want to bring up about this?
I don't think so. I don't see any more. Mr. Hogg, do you have any?
No, I think we touched on sort of the science behind it. I think we touched on the importance of peer review, and I think, Joe, you just did a very good job of tying it into sort of the competitive market of things, and I think it points out how there is sort of good and bad to competition, right? That Google and Microsoft and Apple sort of all racing to create the first functional quantum computer, I think is really pushing the speed of getting this done. But I think this article shows that, you know, when you're in a race, sometimes you try to cut corners.
Yeah.
And so it's this delicate balance of can we use this to make things happen faster? But we have to hold ourselves to a personal level of integrity to make sure that we are still doing it the right way.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that concludes our talk on quantum computing.
I think so too.
So I think we'll go straight into questions for the day. Now, I know many of you are probably horrified, distraught about not hearing questions on our last episode. We hear you. We're sorry. So to compensate, we're going to do 2 sets of questions today. So buckle your seatbelts in. Mr. Hogg, do you want to start or?
Sure, I can start. So we're going to be covering 2 topics today because last time we did not get to do our Pixar trivia. So I will begin with my Pixar trivia.
Okay.
And then, Joe, I believe you had some as well.
I had Pixar trivia.
So we'll pivot over to you, and then we'll come back to me for today's topic, which would be just a little bit of trivia on quantum physics. Okay, so this is a bit more Pixar history. There's a little science in here, but gentlemen, in what year was Pixar founded?
Oh.
And I will, because it is a year, I will give it to the closest person. In what year was Pixar founded? Ponder away as I clarify that it was actually part of Lucasfilm. It was a division called Graphics Group in which it was founded. So we're looking for what year was Pixar founded. You can send me direct message. They are thinking, they are pondering. There's a lot of chin scratching. Joe is locked in his answer.
Okay, I got mine.
And Ethan has locked in his answer. And let's see. So, wow. Joe, your guess was 1982, which is a darn good guess, and actually only 3 years off. Unfortunately, Ethan got it spot on.
Dang.
1979. Pixar was founded in 1979. Well done, Ethan.
Thank you. I was gonna go.
What were you gonna go?
1980.
Yeah.
But I just changed it a little.
I think it's just another case of things kind of being around longer than we think them to be. Normally something has been around for a while before it hits big because there are those years where they're developing things, right? Cool. Question number 2. In 1986, what recently fired tech legend paid George Lucas $5 million for technology rights and then invested another $5 million into the company? I'm looking for the name of the tech legend who in 1986 had been recently fired and basically sunk $10 million into Pixar. Half of it to buy the rights, and then half of it is as an investment.
legend?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
I had zero clue. It's probably gonna be extremely obvious when I hear
Ethan
it,
has locked in his answer.
Tech legend.
Mm-hmm. Joe is still pondering. Oh, he's going with it. He's typing. All right. Ethan went with Bill Gates. Joe went with Warren Buffett. The correct answer is Steve Jobs.
Oh,
Steve
okay.
Jobs. If you have not seen, there's a fantastic documentary called The Pixar Story that really talks about the founding of Pixar and builds up to Toy Story. They go a little bit after it, but basically just giving the history of where Pixar came from. And a large portion of that documentary is just talking about how Steve Jobs kept it afloat for a while because they just once Toy Story hit, Pixar has been gold, but it took a while to get there. Cool. Last Pixar trivia, and this one is getting into our science a little bit. We'll see if you remember it from our visit to the museum. What is the name of the process that turns virtual 3D scenes into 2D images?
3D scenes into 2D images?
Yep, the process that turns virtual 3D scenes into 2D images. So as they are thinking, I will give some background here. Basically, what Pixar does is they create a three-dimensional environment, and they set up the world that they want to convey. And so they fill it with the buildings and the settings and the characters. And then what they do is they almost treat it as if like pointing a camera somewhere in that three-dimensional environment. So it's not really traditional animation of drawing a picture. It's, hey, look at this 3D world, and we're going to position the camera here and take this, and then they turn that into a 2D image. It is one of the later steps in the process, and you can learn more about this at the website I mentioned last week, sciencebehindpixar.org. Joe has locked it in. Ethan has locked it in. Unfortunately, neither of us got the answer on this one. It is called rendering.
Oh.
It's called rendering. So again, I highly encourage our listeners to take a look at that because it is fascinating how Pixar goes about creating their movies. So those are my Pixar questions. Joe, was there any crossover with yours?
Actually, my Pixar questions were more focused on movies.
Well, there you go. Let's hit me with it.
Okay.
Ethan, you're going up against me in movie trivia. We'll see how it goes.
So, first one, there was a similar movie to Bug's Life released by DreamWorks 6 weeks within each other called what?
You said it's similar to Bug's Life?
Yeah.
Okay.
No pressure, Ethan. I sent this one before the question was done.
Shoot. I don't know. I can't think of anything from that time from DreamWorks. I have like a guess. I don't think it's right because I don't think it came out that year, but should I say it out loud?
Sure, my answer is already in.
Shrek maybe, but like that's not too. I don't know.
No, the correct answer, well, that was a good guess, is actually Ants.
Ants.
With a Z.
Spelled with a Z. That's right.
Yeah. Actually, there was a lot of drama between those two companies, between those movies. I found an interesting article if you guys actually want to read that. It was quite interesting. Next one.
Once. I think that's why.
Yeah.
What was that, Ethan?
I think I only saw the Ants movie, I think maybe once or twice when I was younger.
Yeah, I remember liking A Bug's Life better and never needing to revisit Ants.
Yeah.
A Bug's Life is much more, has a much happier tone or a lighter tone. Ants is very dark.
Yeah, I believe Ants had Woody Allen, which Woody Allen movies are sort of a specific type, and would lend to sort of that darker worldview. So, yeah.
Okay. So, Next question. In Up, Charles Muntz flies around in an airship named what?
I think I know.
Okay,
Ethan, you
Mr.
got a
Og has-
shot here. I don't remember this one. I had to go with a guess.
Mr. locks in his answer.
This just goes back to our conversation on Up from last week. I watched Up within the last year, and I can't remember anything other than the beginning, and the scene towards the end of the movie where he flips through the scrapbook. Those are the things I remember from Up, not the name. And the name features pretty prominently in the movie, I feel.
I don't think this is right, but my only guess is like The Adventure or something close to that, right?
It's very close. Mr. Og actually had the right answer with The Spirit of Adventure.
Here we go. Pixar, hire me. Let's go.
So for the third question, I actually had two, but the first one I had
we could do both of them.
Okay. Well, the one I know you know because you said it in the video. So it makes me want to go with the other one because it's much harder because I had no clue. Maybe it's just me because I had no clue what this was. And I feel like I should have known. What does WALL-E stand for?
Oh, no.
Boy. I need to think of another word that starts with L.
Mr. Og has locked in his answer.
I'm pretty confident on what the E stands for. I think I know the W, but the other ones.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a tough one. That's a good question, Joe. I should know that one.
I saw the question. I'm like, wait, what? I was like, I know. I feel like I should know this.
Yeah. Ethan, do you have a guess?
Well, I think I'm pretty confident W was the waste, right? Like waste, alien. I don't know. Yeah, I think I've heard it before.
Yeah,
so but I just can't remember it. No.
So, the correct, and let's just compare it to Mr. Og's is waste allocation load lifter Earth. If for anyone who wants to know, Mr. Og's answer was waste allocation land locator Earth class.
Yeah. I was 3 for 5 on those letters.
Yeah. So close. And for if you want to know, the third question was who was the sworn enemy of the Galactic Alliance in Toy Story?
Yeah.
A bit more of an easy one, but so those were my questions.
Those were good ones, Joe. Well done. Yeah. Well done. We'll end here with some quantum trivia. One of these actually came up in conversation, so you guys look out. Question number 1. The word quantum refers to finite bundles of energy in which what light particles can exist? What light particles? I think most of these questions are fairly accessible for a convoluted topic like quantum. Joe has locked in his answer.
I don't know.
Ethan has locked in his answer, and Joe was spot on with photons.
Let's go.
Well done, Joe. Well done. Second question. To describe the paradox of quantum superposition, physicist Erwin Schrödinger described it as putting what animal in a box with a radioactive source, declaring that until the box is opened, the animal is both alive and dead. Joe has locked in his answer. Ethan has locked in his answer. Well done, gentlemen. It is a cat.
We're going for 3 for 3 today, baby.
Ooh.
We're going
Oh.
for it.
Here we go. Last one. What scientist
Oh, never
referring
mind.
to no, hold on. What scientist referring to quantum mechanics' theoretical ability allowing two objects to affect each other from very far away dubbed it spooky action at a distance? So I'm looking for the scientist who called quantum mechanics spooky action at a distance because of its theoretical ability for two objects to affect each other from very far away. Spooky action at a distance. Ooh, this is a phrase that is actually fairly well known in the
Really?
scientific field.
Oh.
Yes, spooky action at a distance. Ooh, spooky.
Let's see. Which?
They're thinking, listeners. I think this is the most pensive they have been.
Wait. Oh, this is. I don't know if this isn't right, but it's the only person I can think of that I know might. Because the people I'm thinking of, like, they don't deal with quantum mechanics. So I don't know. I'm not sure what this guy even deals with. But.
Okay, Ethan has locked in an answer. Joe's still thinking. He's got 10. He's got 9. He's got 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's not a scientist. I just can't think of anyone. I don't know.
Ethan went with Michael Faraday. Joe went with Elon Musk. The correct answer is Albert Einstein.
Oh, okay. I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah.
I was gonna. He was one of the ones I was thinking of, but I didn't really think.
Yeah, so Albert Einstein was not a fan of quantum mechanics because he had a hard time sort of wrapping his head around it. And as you can see in the quote, he kind of had some disdain for it. If you're looking at the modern world of physics, relativity does a very good job of explaining sort of the big things. Quantum does a very good job of explaining the little things. We've not been able to unite the two in what people are hoping for is the unified theory of physics that would explain both of them. But right now they're kind of at odds with each other, and we have not found a way yet to reconcile them. So Einstein, who is famous for his theories of relativity, did not want to mess with quantum.
Huh. Interesting. I guess I was thinking more quantum computing, and I wasn't actually thinking about quantum mechanics.
Yeah, that's fair.
Huh.
That is fair.
Well, I think that's everything we have planned for today. So thank you all for listening, and we'll be sure to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.